Hello, everyone. It's good to have you here. Welcome to the 13th episode of My Design Journey, hosted, hosted by uh, Just Design. Sorry, there was a little interruption there. Hosted by um, Just Design. Just Design is a design community aimed at democratizing design within the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. Uh, we do this by hosting a series of talks. And for today, we are having the 13th episode of my design journey. And it's my utmost joy to introduce to us my good friend and brother, assistant architect, architect Opeyemi Sina-Olulana. The next voice you'll be hearing will be his profile, and from there we'll take it up. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you will have a wonderful time.
Opeyemi is a distinguished chartered architect and project management professional with a robust focus on sustainability. As a lead professional and a member of the USGBC lead faculty, he has been instrumental in promoting green building practices. Opeyemi's expertise in systems thinking allows him to provide valuable advisory services on organizational processes and assets. In his role as an agilist, he integrates agile methodologies into his projects, ensuring efficient and innovative solutions. He holds several certifications, including Project Management Professional (PMP) and PMI Agile Certified Practitioner (PMI-ACP). Opeyemi has contributed significantly to the field through his publications. Currently, he serves as the lead strategist at Green Score Strategy School, coordinating green building educational initiatives and professional services. Additionally, he is the deputy project lead for the 100,000-seat auditorium project for Living Faith Church worldwide. Opeyemi's dedication to mentorship and leadership development is evident in his platform, Endless Lessons, designed to inspire emerging leaders and refine their potentials. With a career spanning various leadership roles, including his tenure as Director of Physical Planning and Development at Landmark University and Covenant University, Opeyemi continues to be a driving force in sustainable architecture and project management.
All right, thank you very much. Architect Opeyemi, it's good to have you. Thank
Good
you
evening,
for
sir.
honoring our invitation. I'm sure you have a lot to share with us, and I think without much ado, I'll leave the floor open for you. Thank you for your friendship of many years, and I'm sure that today will be another day where you will show that friendship. Thank you very much, Architect Opeyemi, and have a wonderful time as you share with us your diverse experience and your journey. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. First of all, I'd like to say that it's a great privilege and honor to be on this platform. I don't take it lightly, and I hope that we are going to enjoy ourselves in this brief chat that we're going to be having this evening. Thank you very much. I think I can have the slides now. All right. First of all, I'd like to say that architecture does not give you knowledge. If I can have the second slide. What architecture does is to imbue in you the seed of creativity. And that seed can find multi-dimensional expressions. In my case, it has found expression in building design, in project management, product design, sustainability, construction, and facility management, especially by the privilege of the different assignments and exposure that I've had in my career journey. So it's basically focused on overseeing projects, managing budgets, and meeting targets. For tonight's session, I will simply speak to a few lessons drawn from overseeing the next slide and supervising over 343 projects in roughly 25 states. Most of them when I served as Director National Project for about 3 years. And since the lessons are largely universal, next slide, I'll be using a project we did between December 2019 and January 2021 as the pilot. The 2,000 student campus that had a total of 14 buildings, and we completed the campus in 13 months. So straight away, I'll go into the lessons I picked from this project, and along the way, I'll be adding a few other lessons from some other projects, but this is going to be the pilot, lesson that I want to share with us. So the next slide, please. The first lesson I picked is the importance of case studies. When this project came, it came ready for execution. Drawings were done, and it was just to confirm the contractors and mobilize to site. But then we visited a school that was just completed then in Rivers State. And even though we had engaged a semi-participatory approach to the ready design, we still picked a few lessons from that visit, which led to the upward review of the budget. We had so much lesson that we had to check our budget again and introduce a number of things. You see, you can't call yourself a master of anything until you're able to repeat it without help. Learning from others is not a sign of weakness. It's an expression of wisdom. What case studies do is to help us save time and also learn from the mistakes and exploits of other professionals. They are templates which are shortcuts to mastery. That was a major lesson I picked. In fact, it was the very first lesson I picked from this particular project. Now, for every of the lessons I'm going to be sharing tonight, I have a book recommendation. For a good number of the books, I have them in e-copies that I can make available to interested parties. So that's one lesson. The template are shortcuts to mastery. Next slide. The second lesson I picked, and which is very significant, is the need to do more on historical analysis of our project site. In our case, for this particular project I'm discussing, we had begun excavation for the foundation trenches, and then we began to spot some borrow pits, some areas that were previously used as borrow pits, and some landfills sitting within the footprints of about 3 of the 14 buildings. That late discovery cost us extra funds, extra time, and some other tough adjustments. On this slide there, we see that locations evolve. And it is important for us as professionals to avoid assumptions and do our homework properly on our proposed site before locking your design. It's important to know that no two sites share exactly the same conditions. And it will be very dangerous to use previously done analysis. When I say previously, I'm talking about where you have substantial gap between when the analysis was done and when the design decision is being taken. Don't use yesterday's analysis for today's design decision. Non-project related factors, if not properly managed, can negatively impact your project, right? I've recommended a book and I'd like to read an extract from that book. If you go to the next slide, please. All right, I'd like to read an extract from the book, Place and Placelessness by E.Ref. I read the second statement on this slide. Places are emerging or becoming. That is, places grow with historical and cultural change. New elements are added and old elements disappear. Thus, places have a distinct historical component. In LEAD, we talk about under sustainable site. We talk about environmental site assessment, and you have three phases of that, phase 1 to 3. Phase 1 is basically about visual inspection, asking questions, interviewing, indigens, distributing questionnaires and all that, nothing serious. And stage 2 has to do with conducting sample tests. And of course, phase 3 is about remediation. That's if you find anything strange during the test. It is important for us to do proper historical research of our sites before our designs are concluded. On the next slide, you will see some images that shows the particular project site we're discussing, how it evolved within 6 years, from 2016 to 2022. Now, I retrieved this on the 2nd of July, 2024, using an app. So technology also comes to help us to carry out proper historical analysis of our site. You could see how the site moved from almost no activity to the next picture where you see a major road now there. And I think the road is part of the project that led to the borrow pit. And then in 2022, 6 years later, you can see it's a fully blown secondary school campus. I forgot to mention that on the same project, talking about historical inquiry, we also had the case of an uncompleted concrete channel in the community next to the site, not within the site, but the community next to the site. But the completion of that channel was going to be instrumental to the workability of our storm water drainage from the site. So while on this project, we had to take up the completion of that channel. So we had to spend some extra budgetary funds to do that. So external forces beyond the boundary of your site can have impact on your project. And so you need to take the issue of historical inquiry very seriously. There's another lesson I picked, and which is the next slide, is the importance of version control. Version mix-up can be very costly in project execution. Design changes and reviews must be properly tracked, tagged, and documented. Ensure that every drawing is archived in their revisions, and a detailed revision note is attached to all the documented reviews. I have a book recommendation there that will help. In project management, version control is a major issue under configuration management. In the case of this project, we got to site and discovered that during one of our routine inspection, that for one of the classroom blocks, a wrong drawing, a wrong version of the drawing was costed. Whereas the contractors on site had the architect's latest drawing, but an earlier version was used for the costing. You can imagine what this error cost us. It cost us time, brought in some trade-offs from the very beginning of the project. So version control error can be very, very costly to your project execution. Next slide. Just as shown on this table, we must ensure proper tagging and documentation of reviews. We must use the appropriate universal format. I know the ISO 8601 is a more globally accepted date format. You know, version mix-up can just emanate from the issue of misreading the date. So it's important for you to ensure that a globally accepted convention is adopted for documenting your reviews, right? Don't just label the drawings. Let there be a review note updated to include what exactly changed. For example, the item on number 2, under the review note, it says introduction of laboratory on the first floor. Let there be a review note that describes exactly what changed. And on this table, you can see the party who took the action and when the last revision was done. All right. There are also some notes there for us to consider very carefully in terms of naming electronic files to avoid unnecessary mix-up. Access control, controlling access to the drawings is also important because that helps you to manage quality and minimize risks. Some organizations have security password. Some others have some other well-defined access protocols to ensure that they can minimize unnecessary manipulations to their drawings. And when you're sending your drawings out, send them out in formats that cannot be easily manipulated. So version control errors can have grave consequences. And that's the third lesson that I picked from that scheme. The next slide. Cost jury is the next lesson I want to share. And I'm going to read what I have here on the slide. Let your cost consultant defend the project bill line for line before the architect and other consultants. Get to a point of conviction that the BOQ, the project bill, reflects your design goal and intent before transmitting it to the client. Omissions, under measurement, poorly described specifications, and alter the smooth trajectory of your project. So you must show interest in this. Don't expect your cost consultant to know your mind. If you have pictures or specifications, give it to them. Give them samples where possible. Take them with you for case study visits. Ask them to visit similar projects if they exist. Involve them early, right from formation stages. Involve your consultants early, especially the cost consultant. Make him your friend. Now, after all is done, arrange a jury for the QS to marry his bill with your drawing and the other consultants' drawing, and at a BOQ defense, something like a defense sort of. And don't forget, all parties, all relevant parties should sign up on the project bill once you are all convinced that you're on the same page. As much as possible, it's important for me to also say this. Avoid provisional songs or best guess. Is my chancellor that says that guesswork hardly works. As much as possible, you want to be sure that everything reflected in the bill represents your intent. Even if the quantities are properly captured, be sure that the rates defined for those quantities are workable. So that your project doesn't get midway and then you begin to have funny surprises. In our case, we realized at some point from one of our projects that the quantity surveyor had misunderstood the drawings and he left out 80% of the mechanical installation in the bill. So you must work closely with your cost consultant to the point that he will understand your reasoning and your preferences, right? So that's one lesson I also picked. So let's go to the next slide. I'll be sharing the next lesson, which is peer review. Peer review. Two good eyes are better than one. Subject your designs to internal and external peer review. As a designer, you must value your team members' input because no design or designer is perfect. What peer review does is it improves your design decision credibility. In healthcare, for example, the quality of care for patients is standardized through peer review. In law, appeal court, Supreme Court, you don't have one judge because they need that cross-pollination of ideas, that interaction of various experiences and instances to arrive at a very meaningful point. In the academics, before you can publish in certain journals, it is subjected to peer review, right? And don't forget, your design as an architect is your publication. It's an expression of your school of thought. It's an expression of your professional weight. It's your legacy. So you want to be sure that you are not misrepresented by the time your design is built. So it is better for 2 or 3 persons to see your stupidity and correct you than for the entire world to see your failure or error. In our case, we cross-checked the structural drawings we had before we started building. And for, I think, in about 2 buildings, a couple of slabs failed, right? So we had to fortify the design, check the game, made necessary adjustments before we went on. So don't wait for peer review. Ask for it. There are 2 projects I read in a book recently by Ben Flyback, how great things get done, how big things get done. The Boston Tunnel, popularly known as Big Dig, and the Denver International Airport in Colorado. They ran into serious problems, and in resolving those issues, they had to engage peer review. So if peer review would be the instrument to be engaged upon failure, is it not wise for you to embrace it at the point where you can still correct a number of things? So I learned that lesson. It is in law, it is in the academics, it is in healthcare. The construction industry can also embrace the subject of peer review, both internally and externally, right? Because of our time, let me move quickly. Number 6, lesson I picked is close inspection, and that's on the next slide. All right. Woodin Allen says the showing up is 80% of success. There are stages of error on a project, and when they are discovered, will determine if they will become negative works in code, abortive works. or end up as defective works. As a designer, you must take charge of your project before, during, and after execution. You must inspect your design into reality. There's a popular quote that says that people will not do what you expect, but what you inspect. And I want you to take this next statement very seriously as I share an example. Do not allow anyone who will not share liability with you to share authority with you. You must take charge of your project as an architect, as a project manager, as a designer, if you want to see it in reality. Let's see the next slide for the example I said I'm going to share with us. Now, this was a project in Kansas City, completed in 1980 and died in 1981, killing 114 people. Now, let's read this note beside the picture. The engineering firm, Gilliam and Associates, designed the walkways to be supported on really long threaded rods. All right? The company supplying the rods, Evans Steel, didn't like the specified rods because they were going to be expensive and likely to be damaged during construction. So what did they do? They sent an alternative design to Gilliam and Associates, which was used for the construction. Of course, it came down in 1981, barely a year after. And the Missouri Board of Architects, professional engineers, and land surveyors, as everywhere they could check it, found Gilliam and Associates guilty of negligence and revoked all of the engineering licenses assigned to Gilliam and Associates, including the employees. Everybody chopped something by what was defined as negligence. In some other articles I read, I learned that the designing firm just stamped the drawings, did not do proper check, and then they built with it. And that's the result. From my experience on this campus project, I realized that at times some things appear differently on paper than they do in reality. So the importance of close inspection. As you go to site regularly, you see things you want to change. You see things that are appearing differently from what you thought. There was a time inspection, I think that should be 2018 or 2019, it took me to 7 states in 1 week because of the value of projects we had there. I was, I think, Imo, River State, Abia State, Ebonyi, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Bayelsa, in 1 week. As a project manager, you must be in the front. You must be visible on your project. Don't forget to not share authority with anybody with whom you are not going to share liability. The next lesson is on the next slide. I'd like you to proceed. Quality control, quality assurance. Now, it's one thing to uphold quality delivery, or it's another thing to standardize, to monitor, and to evaluate the process of measurement. A bad test result, whether it's correct or not, will distract you. Do not delegate quality assurance supervision. Create and monitor instruments that cannot be easily manipulated. Own the process. You don't want to be at the meeting one day and they will just flag one scary test result and then you begin to sweat. You want to be sure. In that case, we had a funny experience. One building one time, the head of structures came to me and said, "Sir, some cubes failed." Now, even though we knew that we had upheld standards in all our processes on that side, the results were saying otherwise. We had done investigation, we had conducted non-destructive tests and all that. We even introduced some fortification before we found out that the cubes were not properly handled up to the point of crushing, and that was responsible for the kind of results we got. Of course, the test we carried out, everything successful. So what am I saying? Monitor the process. It is important. A bad result at any point in your project, no matter how confident you are in the processes you have engaged with, it will distract you. And then you want to be sure that that's not the case. Next, I also have a book recommendation there. I think I have an e-copy of it. In case you're interested, I can make it available. Material sourcing. As an architect and designer, material source investigation should interest you. Consider availability, consider logistics, consider timing, and other off-site issues that may impact the feasibility of your specification. That a material is ideal for selection doesn't make it a good idea. It is out of reach. You must make an informed decision. I'm very sure you're familiar with the issue of some structural designers having to review their steel designs to accommodate available section sizes in the market when their specified thickness or member sizes could not be found. Such reviews at times cost time, even when they don't cost money directly. Time is also money, right? In our case on this project from which I'm sharing the lessons, we didn't realize at the specification stage that the company whose products we were specifying for roof covering was in some deep struggles. In fact, they were at the verge of packing up. So contractors paid money, roofing sheets were not forthcoming. For about 5 buildings or so, or they were coming in trickles for about 8 weeks. So you know what that means? You know there are quite a number of works that cannot be done when a building is not roofed. So it was a real battle. Eventually, we had to change that specification in the middle of the project. So as a designer, you must know where that material you're specifying would come from and be sure that it's available in the quantity that you'll be requiring. All right. Be sure that it's going to be available in the quantity that you'll be requiring. Next lesson, which is the penultimate one before I talk about the final lesson I picked, is explicit specification. Explicit specification. And I'd like to read what I have here on the screen. You cannot fully enforce what is not written. Specifications are enforceable contract documents. They are legally binding on the owner and the contractor. Don't forget that you represent the owner once issued. When it is not clearly written, they become subject to diverse convenient interpretations. They are legal documents. One day while on inspection, one of the big buildings had started roof covering. In fact, about 25% of the area has been covered. I stood there wondering, it doesn't look exactly like what I was used to. The sheets were looking flat. And so I stood there. I couldn't say well done. I couldn't say bad job. I was just, there's something off. I was excited. Yes, we've started roof covering, but it looked flat. You know, the team had confirmed the gauge, we had confirmed the color and all that, but something else was wrong. We realized that while we had specified the thickness, you know, 0.7, the length, the color, and all that, we were silent on the profile design. So the contractor just chose an easy one. And they called it one brand name, which I don't want to mention, but a different brand from what we had in mind. And you know, your profile design affects the strength, the water drainage capability, and speed, including aesthetics, which was the first thing I observed. So eventually, we had to remove those sheets and corrected the specification. Next slide. It's important for you as a designer to not leave your contractor to connect the dots. It's your responsibility to draw the line, right? If it's to conduct mock RFI sessions where you issue the drawings across the various sub design teams, project teams, and let them generate mock RFIs. That helps you to, you do that a few times, you know, that helps you to get a near perfect specification document. You see, contractors are very good at exploiting missing information to their own convenience, so don't let them catch you. They are experts at exploiting loopholes. Now, you have your drawings, which are, you know, I say that the drawing and specification is like you have a presentation, and the drawing is the video component of the presentation, while the specification is the audio component. So imagine you're watching a video, you can see graphics, but you can't hear anything. It becomes boring. That's what happens when you have drawings that are well done, but you have specifications that are defective. So you have your drawings that are more like graphical representations of your intention as a designer, and you have the specification document on the other side. There are different approaches to that, like as listed there. Performance requirement reference talks about the global standards that you intend to adopt. Descriptive, talking about the, you know, trying to describe the technical specifications, and then proprietary. You see, the proprietary helps you to some level because there's what we call guide specification, which they provide. If I had was something like that, I would have avoided the challenge I had on the roof covering. And the proprietary approach to specification combines the reference and the performance categories. But you see, it's also very dangerous because the guide specification can give an opportunity to a brand to, you know, insert some narratives that are meaningless, but to the intent of leaving out or edging out competition. They just introduce one name and one code that really doesn't have impact on the performance of that specification, but by so doing, it will be difficult for competitors to, you know, understand that specification. So you must be aware of all of the nitty-gritty and all of the nuances that come to play when you are talking about specification. I said here that excessive RFIs from your contractor is not a sign of how complex or how big your project is. It's simply a sign of poor design coordination. You want to be sure that you don't find yourself in that corner. I want to say it may be a little bit controversial, but quantity surveyors, architects, and engineers are not chartered specifiers. So proper consultation with manufacturers through their brochures or product agents is also very important, right? So you want to be sure that your specification is very explicit. And here, schedules, they bridge the gap between drawings and the specification document. So if there are descriptions that graphics cannot do justice to, schedules come to play there, right? So finally, the big one, um, the lesson I picked, and it's on the next slide. COVID-19. We had 5 good months of total lockdown and ban on non-essential movement in the country during this project. I think that lockdown was from March 2020 to about August 2020. And I picked a major lesson from that. We must learn to create resilient designs. Our project should be able to bounce back after external setbacks. And one of the ways to achieve this is specification flexibility and material creativity. Never craft your project in a way that external forces have so much power over its success or failure. Never. One of the ways to create a resilient design is to have credible options for your critical specifications. Don't do designs that can only be achieved with one material type by one manufacturer, or the one that they must invent a new material for, except it's worth it, right? Again, imagine if ours was a project where consultants must fly in physically to sign off on critical milestones. Would have been grounded for those months. So it's better to think around proximity, think around availability, think around sustainability for design resilience. You see, at that time, we had to be taking site workers for tests, locking the site gate to control movement. Remember the regular and washing, temperature checks, nose mask, and so on. We even had arrangement to lodge key contractors' personnel within walking distance of the project site. We just had to respond to the season. And all the project survived, and we met the target because we had the longer side of the rope in our hands. It is important. Even though ours was COVID-19, an unprecedented epidemic, a pandemic. Beyond that is a profound lesson that any unexpected, unpleasant development can happen. And you must ensure that your design has a way of responding. There's a project in North Korea, I think they call it the Hotel of Doom. It's been on, I think, since 1980 something. It's abandoned. And one of the major factors that led to the failure of that project is that Soviet Union collapsed, USSR collapsed, and it affected the project in North Korea. Why? At that time, USSR was one of their major allies, and they had envisaged that a number of the materials they were going to use for that iconic project would come from those countries or from Soviet Union. Something changed externally, and they lost that project. Next slide, to wrap up, will be my closing tips. Be clear with your communication to avoid misrepresentation and costly errors. Take time to understand and interpret your client's vision. As a designer, it's not about you. Your client's project is not an opportunity to carry out an experiment or to express your taste or to exhibit new knowledge. It's to interpret the vision of your client. Number 3, you must create realistic timelines and budgets so as to deliver on your promises and earn your client's trust. If you satisfy one client very well, it can bring 100 more. Number 4, be flexible and enjoy problem solving. Projects hardly go the way they were planned. So prepare your mind for unexpected issues. Number 5, regular site visits are essential. We mentioned that under close inspection. Being physically present on site allows you to catch potential issues early. And number 6, develop and maintain strong relationship with contractors, suppliers, and other professionals. Your partners can make or mar your project. Finally, stay updated The industry evolves daily with new technologies, materials, and methodologies. You don't want to be left behind. Next slide, I have a collection of the 10 books that I've recommended per lesson here. Like I said, I have a few e-copies I can make available if you're interested. In closing, I would want to say to you that don't just design your project, also design its success. Thank you, Just Design, for the platform, and I thank you all for listening. Thank you very much.
Wow. Wow. Well, Akito Opeyemi, thank you very much. I think
Thank you, sir.
I should call this a masterclass in project management and project
Thank
success.
you, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's the way I can
Thank
call
you.
it, a masterclass in the project management and project success. I think while we try to take some questions from our viewers, I just have just some kind of summary of you know your presentation, and I think you try to run through about 10 lessons. One is the importance of case studies, the importance of historical inquiry, and I think I had an experience with that recently somewhere in Lagos on the project I was overseeing. Number three, version control, cost jury. I think we are used to design jury, but I think I've heard from you another dimension, cost jury. Peer review, cost close inspection. Of course, what you don't inspect, you can't expect is performance. Quality assurance, material sourcing, specification, and you put in front explicit specification. That's very important for designers. Then uh, you said COVID-19. So that's a very interesting one. I think maybe I will call that extreme condition that every designer must consider, an extreme condition that you can't even think of in the book. And I think, I mean, was good you were able to situate the fact that COVID-19 as a phenomenon um, had impact on your project and would always have impact on several other projects. It may not be COVID-19. It could be Ebola. It could be something unpredictable. So I think looking out for the unpredictable in projects is a key factor to your success. Uh, I mean, one statement that was very profound was you mentioned that do not use yesterday's analysis for today's design. That's very interesting because I mean, a number of times people have done some studies. You want to rely on them, but I think the idea is we are saying, look, you need to cross-check previous findings. Don't just take it hook, line, and sinker. I mean, I want to say thank you very much. It's been a wonderful time. You also mentioned that places are evolving. That's interesting. Even I mean that places are involved, even sites that are not, you know, underused. Places are are evolving. That's a very fantastic one. I want to say thank you very much, Akitope. And
Thank you,
of
sir.
course, for designers, you mentioned that excessive RFIs already puts a comma on the design. I think, I mean,
Mm.
I think today you've been able to, speak in detail to, the nuances of project success. And I think part of what Just Design stands to democratize design. Really, design doesn't have to be complicated or complex. With this kind of knowledge, designers, architects, constructors, uh, can know exactly how to situate their projects. And I think, thank you very much, Dr. Pe. You've been able to really
Thank you, sir.
put, a great seal on what we are doing. And I'm sure we'll leave the floor open for comments. I can see our guests. I mean, our guests from different parts of the country, Asaba. I can see Abuja. I can see Lagos. I can see Jos. Thank you very much for joining in. It's been a wonderful time. And okay, I can see a beautiful lady. That's the wife of our presenter, Mrs. Olufumilola Olushino. Thank you for joining in. I think right now I'll just leave the floor open for questions for presenter. I have one question for you anyway, but I'll let others ask first before I ask my own question.
All right.
Thank you very much, Akitokwe.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I think a question from architects Mua Mola Kuye. Architect Mua Mola Kuye has been a consistent participant at our sessions, and I must say we must give you an award, Architect Kuye, and expect the award. We'll give it to you. Architect, in a nutshell, which will you not compromise on within the three cardinal points of project management: time, quality, and cost?
I think that's a no-brainer. Architect Kuya, it's been a while. Good to see you. Okay, usually they say that if there are two indicators for a successful project or for a failed project. If you have cost overrun or you have time overrun, is already indicative of the fact that your project is failing. However, if I had to choose, I would tell you that if you have a badly executed job, the time you thought you saved, you will still lose it in future. And the money you thought you saved, you will still spend it in future. So I will just go for quality because I want to put under quality the intention and the vision of the client. So if I say, because I don't want to spend more money, I deliver a project anyhow, the client is going to come back under maintenance to spend more money. And if I say because of time, there's what we call technical debt. Technical debt is that you know that this is the right solution to something, but you take an easy way out because of certain factors. Is a debt you're owing. You'll come back to pay it. So I'll go with quality. You know, functionality must not be compromised. So I think that's what I will stand with, Architect Kuye.
Okay, I think there's a question from Abiodun Shonibarek, that's Calatrava. The level of civilization of a space is mostly related to the architecture of that place. Sometimes one needs to push the boundaries to get novel results. How can one strike a balance in being safe?
Okay, that's a brilliant one. I think designers, the reason why they are designers is because they're also experts in quote in research. Research and development is a major aspect of solution providing. You must first of all have a grip of what is going on and have an idea of what is coming next, so that your design is not standing in isolation of the environmental culture or the environmental scheme. But in the next few years, you don't also want people to pass by your building to say that this is an old scheme. So one, you must have knowledge of what is prevalent, and you must also you must exhibit the benefit of projection. You must be able to know that in the next 5, 10 years, I want this building. There's a building. I was privileged. I think I saw sometime in December in the UK, the Getting, and there was a building there before that was a subject of terrorist attack. But then when they were going to rebuild that place, the designers made up their mind that they were going to, break the barriers in terms of innovation. Do you know that that singular building gave back to the what they call the skyscrapers that you see around that financial district in the UK? So as a designer, it's important for you to have that benefit of research that you're able to introduce into your project to give it some kind of relevance, even in years to come. So it is okay for you to want to express the environmental forces, but it's also important for you to have that edge in terms of projecting what that building should represent in the nearest future. So that is how I'm going to respond to that.
All right. Thank you very much. Uh, okay, just checking. Okay, architect Koya again. Also, at what point do you integrate facility management within the life of the project?
That's easy. As a lead professional, one of the standard is that as you are delivering your project, you're already documenting how you expect the building to be managed, right? And that has been incorporated into the provisions you made available. We talk about water metering, electricity metering, and all that, refuse disposal, and all that. So, what sustainability preaches is that as you are handing over the building, you're also handing over a manual for how you want it maintained. You see, we said it that when you're inspecting your project and you're working on a design, you are working on it both with the past and the future in mind. So you are giving a template, you are giving a manual to the users of that. When you buy a product, it comes with manual. The manual is to help you to enjoy that product within the expected lifespan. So as designers, you must consider how your building will be managed. Don't go and recommend one ties that when they want to do maintenance, they will say it's no longer available. And then you have to either break everything or you're thinking of something else. So there's a manual you make available at the point where you are delivering your project. So right from onset, you're thinking about it. And when you are handing over, you are making that manual available for the operations and maintenance of your facility.
All right. Thank you very much, architect Opeyemi. Okay. What another question from architect Kuye? Architect Opeyemi, a large portion of the learnings were hinged on the quality of your consultants. To these, what are the key parameters in selecting consultants?
First of all, you must define your vision. What kind of projects are you trying to achieve? And then you want to define what kind of partners I want to work with, people who have done it before. Just like you interview and you screen contractors, you're also supposed to interview and screen consultants. They must be able to convince you that they have the experience for what you want to do, they have the expertise for what you want to do, and they have the team to ensure effective supervision. So that's what I'm going to say. You define the parameters in terms of the vision you have for your project, and then it helps you to look out for the qualities you desire in your consultants.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Pei. Our time is fast spent. I have one question for you. And that is what will you consider the greatest predictor of project success? I know there are several, but which one will you consider the greatest predictor of project success? Just one.
I think I would say the team. And when I say the team, I'm talking about the consultant and the contractor. If you get it wrong, you get your contractor wrong, you're already in soup. You get the consultants wrong, you're already in soup. So part of your project planning is getting the team right. You must get the team right. And once you get the team right, they'll put every other thing in line. That's what I'm going to say. There may be many other things, but I think I want to go with that for now.
Okay. The team. Thank you very much. That's been a very brilliant presentation, Akitope. Well, I'm not surprised. Your track record over the last 15, 20 years that I've known you, I think you've been able to, I mean, so I'm not surprised really. And in the last few years, our working together has also demonstrated the fact that you're a master at your craft. Thank you very much. And I want to say I'm really grateful for your time, and to our audience, to our community, I want to say thank you very much for your time. It was a very engaging session. Comments, inputs, questions coming in. People joining from different parts of the country. I want to say thank you very much. And this time next month, we'll be here again with another session. I want to say thank you very much. And I think I saw my wife too. She said thank you, sir. Akitokwe. So, so Ms. Alalade is saying thank you, sir.
Thank
I want
you,
to say,
Sister Mo.
so thank you, everyone. Thank you, Akitokwe. We see you next month in a very great session by another wonderful designer. Thank you very much, and God bless.